Discover the amazing secrets of medieval England. 7 transformative tales that will inspire you. Sarah stood in her classroom, the sunlight filtering through the dusty windows, eliminating the faded posters clinging to the walls like relics of a bygone era. She gazed at her students, their faces a mix of indifference and boredom. The laughter that echoed in the hallway barely masked the seriousness that loomed over Maplewood High. With each passing day, she felt the weight of tight budgets and standardized tests crushing her passion for teaching. The glow of inspiration flickered, as if it too was subject to economic restraints. But Sarah had a fire in her, an unwavering commitment to instill a love for history that would spark their imaginations. However, the reality was grim. Each lesson felt as if it swirled in a whirlpool of constraints, teasing her ambition yet binding her down. After school, while rummaging through her grandmother's attic to find a wayward box of old textbooks, Sarah's fingers brushed against a dusty diary. As she opened it, the voices of centuries past enveloped her. Tales of knights, betrayal, and the fierce pursuit of justice during chaos in medieval England. These stories mirrored her own struggles, loyalty to her family's fading farm, and the daunting challenge of revitalizing her teaching amidst bureaucracy. Would these tales resonate with her students? Could they breathe life into the bare walls around her? Would they see history as a series of connected struggles rather than a passive collection of dates? The thought filled her with both hope and trepidation. Before she could lean into this revelation, an unsettling feeling gripped her. Her rival, Mr. Larson, was watching. He thrived within the confines of rigid teaching methods, relishing each opportunity to undermine her unorthodox approach. With a school board meeting looming, Sarah found herself trapped in psychological warfare, questioning every creative lesson plan she crafted. The vision of students enraptured by epic tales of their ancestry and struggles felt monstrous against a backdrop of dwindling enrollment and harsh deadlines. Was it folly to believe her methods could flourish in this environment? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. That evening, the community meeting filled her with dread. She could sense the emotional tides writhing as neighbors filed into the room, nestled within a swirl of fears about budget cuts impacting essential programs. Her heart raced as she reflected on her ancestors, who mustered courage against overwhelming odds. Would she find an ounce of that bravery? To advocate for her students and her career, or would doubt win out? The principal stood to voice the board's impending decisions, while Sarah felt herself teetering on an emotional precipice. This agonizing moment paralyzed her. Would they understand the significance of history beyond mere tests? Would her narrative resonate amongst them, or dissolve under criticism? Time slipped through her fingers as the room became an echo chamber for uncertainties, and the stakes heightened. What would she choose? Would she immerse herself in fear, or step into the light of possibility, channeling the spirits of those who fought for what was right? The outcome swirled before her, clear yet hazy. She was left fighting for clarity against a wave of anguish threatening to engulf her. As the principal launched into his monotone report, Sarah's mind spiraled. Each word felt like a chain tightening around her resolve. The mention of budget cuts, inevitable layoffs, and dwindling resources echoed like a death knell to her dreams. Images of her students' faces displayed a mix of apathy and concern, and she couldn't help but wonder if they saw the same bleak future looming above them. But deep within her, an ember of determination ignited. Her ancestors' stories, those of bravery in the face of adversity, rippled through her thoughts, urging her to reclaim her own narrative. Could she channel these historical tales into something powerful enough to engage her students, to make them see history as their own? The thought rushed forth with urgency. This was not just about survival, but about resurgence. In a surge of impulsivity, Sarah raised her hand. The room fell silent, eyes pivoting toward her. A torrent of emotions coursed through her, but she clamped down and focused. Every heartbeat echoed a plea to rise above her fear, to confront the doubts gathered in the air. "I believe we need to look beyond these walls and the confines of standardized tests," she began, her voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through her. "History isn't merely a subject to be memorized. It is a tapestry of trials and triumphs that shape who we are today." Her words hung in the air, charged with the weight of her resolve. Mr. Larson's icy stare pierced through the murmur of the audience as he assessed her challenge. He was waiting for her to falter. Taking a deep breath, she pressed on. "If we teach history through stories, through the lens of those who lived it, perhaps we could ignite a passion for learning that standardized tests fail to recognize. They demand facts. It's our job to make those facts come alive." The tension in the room felt electric. She still recalled the diary, the way her grandmother's writing had transported her, igniting a passion that transcended time. If only she could pass that spark to her students. Would they resonate with tales of questioning authority, of standing up against injustice? But doubt clawed at her resolve. What if they dismissed her approach as some romantic whimsy, a distraction from the stark reality they faced? She had clearly crossed into dangerous territory, but just as an endless sea can offer both storm and calm, this moment teetered between potential devastation and empowerment. After long moments of contemplation, a wild thought struck her. What if we each created a project inspired by a historical figure or event? Let's explore these stories together. We can analyze their decisions, their hardships, and what they reveal about our own lives. A ripple of conversation broke out among her colleagues, some nodding, others shaking their heads in disapproval. She glanced at Mr. Larson. His jaw tightened. The atmosphere crackled with divided opinions, but hope ignited within her, blooming under the pressure. The back and forth continued, debates unfurling like a scroll of historic arguments, while she quietly urged the community to see beyond limitations. Engagement peaked when one of her students stood up, eager to amplify Sarah's vision. This singular act was both encouragement and a revelation. She realized her influence could extend like the arm of a beloved mentor. As tensions faded into hopeful discussions and future planning, she recognized that her path would not be straightforward. It would require courage, resilience, and unwavering faith. The moments of joy and connection she sought would come with challenges and pushback. The meeting adjourned, but as she stepped outside, uncertainty still shadowed her resolve. Would this newfound enthusiasm gain traction or wither as the budget cuts loomed closer? Sarah's heart raced anew. She had taken a stance, but the true test of her conviction lay ahead. Would she be able to transform her unfiltered passion into actionable change within a system designed to suppress it? Her next steps bristled with potential, and just before she stepped into the cool evening air, one thought cleaved through the fog of doubt. The time had come to face Mr. Larson directly. This clash of ideals was unavoidable. Determination coursed through Sarah as she walked toward the faculty lounge, each step a testament to her resolve. She could feel the weight of Mr. Larson's disapproval pressing on her shoulders, yet it only fueled her ambition more fiercely. She needed to articulate her vision clearly, not just to her colleagues, but to him. This was not solely about introducing creative projects. It was about instilling a renewed sense of purpose and relevance in the students. She glanced out the window at the fading sunlight, suddenly aware of the urgent need to take charge before darkness overshadowed their hope completely. Charging her mind with historical anecdotes was one way to start. Sarah remembered how influential stories could be. Not just long-ago events recounted in textbooks, but experiences packed with emotion, struggles, and resolutions. The idea that history could be a vessel for profound self-discovery ignited within her a series of plans and strategies. A lesson plan materialized in her mind, an amalgamation of storytelling and personal connection. What if each student chose a historical figure who transcended challenges? What if they could channel the struggles of their ancestors into a creative format they felt proud of? As she settled at her desk, flipping open her notebook, Sarah's heart raced. She furiously began drafting a proposal. This wasn't merely a curriculum enhancement. This project could be revolutionary. Empowerment through storytelling could foster resilience among students. They might learn that rather than being passive consumers of knowledge, they could become active participants, weaving their narratives through the rich tapestry of the past. But she had to prepare for Mr. Larson's anticipated skepticism. The image of his furrowed brows and dismissive voice lived at the forefront of her thoughts. She could almost hear him saying, "Innovative ideas won't save us from budget constraints." Her pen paused, hovering above the page as anxiety gripped her once more. What if he was right? What if all her efforts to incite passion crumbled before the harsh realities of funding and policy? But suppressing these dangerous thoughts was key. She wouldn't allow fear to dictate her actions. Instead, she would counter with researched arguments, data on student engagement, feedback from surveys on the efficacy of hands-on learning, and case studies on similar initiatives in struggling districts. The late afternoon sun poured through the window, illuminating her papers like a spotlight, and with it came a tangible sense of clarity. Each time she felt doubt creeping in, she reminded herself of the spark she witnessed during the meeting, that electric moment when her students stood up to support her ideas. Those ephemeral second chances would give them insights that test scores could never capture. With renewed vigor, Sarah finalized her proposal. This wasn't merely about fighting Mr. Larson's opposition. It was about empowering herself and her students to connect with their own histories, to see reflections of their struggles and triumphs in tales from the past. Taking a moment to breathe, she packed her materials into a folder, ready to face the principal head-on. Although trepidation lingered in the corners of her mind, her convictions silenced it. The time had come to confront Mr. Larson, to turn this clash into an opportunity for dialogue rather than an impasse. Determined, Sarah marched down the hallway, clutching her proposal like a lifeline. But as she reached his office door, uncertainty struck again. Would he dismiss her ideas out of hand, or would their conversation spark something more significant? Before she could knock, a sharp voice echoed from within. "I understand the budget cuts are difficult, but we can't let creativity run amok." Shocked, Sarah hesitated. She could not let his words cast her into retreat. She had to step in now, to engage, to challenge him directly. With a deep breath, she knocked and entered. The moment of truth awaited her. That defining conversation was about to begin. As Sarah stepped into the office, Mr. Larson paused mid-sentence, his eyes narrowing into a hard gaze that silenced the atmosphere. His posture shifted slightly as he regarded her with a mix of surprise and skepticism, his arms crossed defensively across his chest. "Miss Thompson," he said coolly, "I was just discussing the limitations we face." The familiar knot of anxiety twisted in Sarah's stomach, but she refused to back down. She straightened her shoulders and took a calculated breath. "I understand that the budget issues are daunting," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I believe we have an opportunity to redefine our approach to teaching history and engage our students in a way that transcends traditional constraints." Mr. Larson's brow arched skeptically. "And how do you propose we do that without significant funding? Students need to pass tests, not write stories." With a rush of determination, Sarah went into her prepared arguments. "What if I told you that recent studies show projects emphasizing personal narratives can increase engagement levels by up to 50%? Imagine presenting history through the lens of individual experience, real lives, real struggles. We can teach the curriculum while making learning relevant." He shifted slightly, an almost imperceptible motion, but it was enough to confirm that she hadn't lost him entirely. She pressed on, fueled by the potential impact of her ideas. "By having students choose figures they resonate with, we not only teach them about history, but also empower them to reflect on their identities. This could lead to improved performance not only in history, but across the curriculum," she emphasized, leaning closer as she spoke, channeling the urgency she felt for her students' success. Mr. Larson remained silent, his fingers drumming against the desk, an unsettling rhythm that pushed Sarah to fill the gap. "I understand the hesitation, but we can potentially partner with local history groups, apply for grants specific to educational projects, or even initiate a crowdfunding campaign. I've done some research on successful case studies." She offered examples that showed where innovative approaches had turned schools around, especially in economically troubled regions. For a fleeting moment, she believed she saw a flicker of interest in his eyes before he concealed it behind a hard mask. "You have passion, Sarah. That's commendable. But passion alone will not sustain a program without backing." His rebuttal was like cold water dousing her fire. Yet the intensity of her conviction surged forward. "It could attract the backing we need. This is about more than just saving a program. It's about saving an approach that connects our students to their heritage." As silence enveloped them, Sarah's heart raced, matching the tempo of her thoughts. She was no longer just defending an idea. She was standing up for her vision and for her students. Each face she had seen in her classroom became a reminder of her purpose. Finally, he leaned back, eyeing her thoughtfully, and for a moment her heart lifted with the hope of collaboration rather than confrontation. Perhaps she might just pierce through his hardened exterior. "I'll consider your proposal," he said slowly, his tone begrudgingly softening. "Thank you." The relief mixed with endorphins of hope that surged through her, invigorating her. Spirit. But even as she vowed to continue the fight, a new, sharper doubt intruded. What if he did consider her proposal, but only in a light that stripped it of its essence? "Just remember," he added, his brows knitted in seriousness, "successful implementation relies on practicality. It must withstand scrutiny." His warning lingered like a specter in the air as Sarah exited, her mind racing with possibilities. She had ignited a dialogue, but the battle was far from won. Her proposal needed to shift from concept to actionable strategy, and she had to prepare for deeper scrutiny than ever before. As she stepped out of his office, Sarah felt invigorated yet burdened by new questions. What sacrifices would she need to make to keep her vision intact? Would she be able to adapt, pivot, and yet retain the heart of her intentions? The intensity of the moment wasn't merely in the confrontation. It had unlocked an internal dialogue, one that mirrored the historical narratives she sought to unveil. Was she prepared to face more than just budget constraints, but the very essence of her ideals? With a fierce determination settling deep within, she clutched the folder again, ready to strategize. The timeline was short and the stakes were high. She needed to draw deeper from her well of knowledge and inspiration to bridge her vision with the reality she faced. The time had come for decisive action. But what would that look like? And how far was she willing to go to preserve the integrity of her dream? As she made her way down the hall, her mind raced. She would need to explore outside the confines of standard teaching. But how? This questioning ignited a fire for new strategies. And with each step, she felt the walls of her professional landscape shift, whispering the promise of the unknown. Sarah knew that the next move would be crucial, a decision that could either unlock growth or lead to stagnation. The following days were a whirlwind of research, brainstorming, and sleepless nights as Sarah dove deeper into her vision. She began to meticulously outline a comprehensive proposal that would not only address Mr. Larson's concerns, but would also breathe life into her ideas. The more she wrote, the more she realized the project needed a unique angle to captivate interest not only from the administration, but potential stakeholders as well. In the quiet hours before dawn, she found herself in the cozy confines of her kitchen, surrounded by scattered papers and her laptop glowing softly in the dim light. She scribbled notes as ideas flowed like water from a shifted dam. It became clear to her, historical narratives should not just be lines on a page, but stories bursting with emotion, struggle, and identity. They needed to resonate with students, allowing them to see themselves in history. Determined to lay a solid foundation, she started reaching out to colleagues, hoping to gather support for her cause. It was during these discussions that Sarah discovered her knack for persuasion and rallying enthusiasm. Her colleagues were slowly pulled into her vision, and with their encouragement, she felt her confidence swell. Each conversation reinforced her belief that her approach could spark a transformation in how history was taught, shifting it from dusty textbooks to living, breathing stories. However, doubt would creep in uninvited. Despite her progress, she often questioned if she was capable of executing such a bold initiative. Was she truly the right person to challenge conventional methods? Each time she faced these thoughts, she remembered the faces of her students, their eagerness for knowledge and longing for connection. They were her fuel. Were they not worth the risk? As her proposal took shape, strategic planning became critical. She mapped out potential partners, local historians, community colleges, and cultural organizations that could provide resources, guest speakers, or financial backing. It was daunting but invigorating. The challenge required her to step out of her comfort zone, reinventing her role from a mere instructor to a passionate advocate for innovative educational experiences. Then came the moment she had been anticipating. She secured a meeting with the leaders of local history groups. This was no small feat, and with each confirmation email, her heart raced. Would they embrace her ideas, or would they perceive her ambitions as naive? On the day of the meeting, her palms grew clammy as she rehearsed her pitch again and again, envisioning every possible question they might throw her way. Arriving at the community center, she felt the weight of her aspirations pressing down like a heavy cloak, but she resolved to wear it with dignity. Standing before a small group of historians, she began with an anecdote about her favorite historical figure, weaving their story as a canvas to paint broader themes on history's larger narrative. Their responses were mixed. Some were intrigued, while others raised eyebrows of skepticism. Sarah had anticipated this and had prepared counterarguments, but the underlying tension gnawed. History isn't just about the dates and events, she insisted, her voice firm but warm. It's about the lives and experiences that shaped those events. By focusing on personal narratives, we will not only teach our students history, we'll empower them to engage with it meaningfully. As she spoke, Sarah observed expressions shift, slowly unveiling dialogues in their eyes. She saw subtle nods as interest peaked. To her surprise, the fear that had begun to build in her chest transformed into resolve. This wasn't just about her. It was becoming a collective journey with allies carrying the same torch. Offering to collaborate on initiatives and workshops was received more positively than she'd envisioned. Offers of support and ideas flowed like a current, rejuvenating her spirit. Still, as she left the center that day, excitement coiling in her chest, a voice echoed in the back of her mind. Was this initial encouragement a mere fleeting spark? A true commitment to her vision? The complexity of ensuring sustainable support rattled beneath the surface. She understood that passion had sparked interest, but could it withstand external pressures? As doubts whispered once again, she knew she was standing on the precipice of a new reality, balancing the delicate line between hope and pragmatism. And amidst the turmoil of possibilities, she felt a sense of urgency pulsate through her. The next step demanded clarity and unwavering commitment. The conversation was evolving, but would she be able to keep the essence of her vision intact as she navigated the shifting dynamics of the educational landscape? With these questions propelling her forward, Sarah resolved to gather feedback, refine her strategy, and prepare for the next round where stakes would undoubtedly rise. The true test of her mettle was approaching. She stepped into her office the next day with renewed purpose, setting her sights on shaping the dialogue more intentionally. Sarah knew, in the depths of her being, that the time had come to face the inner critic and embrace whatever challenges lay ahead. Would she emerge on the other side successfully transformed, or would doubts threaten to undermine her progress? The answers awaited her in the heart of the educational realm, and she was determined to uncover the path forward. As dawn broke, Sarah sifted through the feedback she had received the day before. Each comment, whether approving or critical, illuminated new facets she hadn't considered. She felt the indecision ripple through her as she weighed the critic's apprehension against the emerging wave of support from her allies. The duality of her situation nagged at her. Could she remain true to her vision while shaping it to appease the skeptics? Digging deep, she realized this was not merely a question of personal validation. It was about the educational future she envisioned for her students. Every time she closed her eyes, images of their eager faces filled her mind. She could not afford to compromise the heart of her initiative. Still, the voices around her urged caution. Navigating this landscape would require more than mere enthusiasm. As she meticulously drafted her next steps, questions piled like stacks of books awaiting organization. How could she leverage the initial excitement she garnered into sustained momentum? She needed a strategic plan, one that enlisted allies without diluting the core ideals that fueled her ambitions. Determined, Sarah decided to invite her colleagues for a brainstorming session, an informal gathering to map the landscape of possibilities and partnerships. The thought of it excited her, but also brought a swell of anxiety. This was her chance to refine her strategy and showcase her leadership skills. But what if her peers dismissed her ideas as far-fetched? The prospect of rejection felt like a boulder pressing down on her. In her contemplative moments, she began jotting down potential discussion topics, categorized under strengths, challenges, and opportunities. Each category demanded scrutiny, forcing her to confront her fears head-on. The exercise became therapeutic. She found clarity amid a jumble of thoughts, both reaffirming her vision and exposing weaknesses. She noted the recurring theme of community involvement as a necessity, an area she still needed to explore with greater depth. The day of the brainstorming session arrived, and Sarah transformed her home office into a vibrant creative space, filled with colorful post-it notes and whiteboards brimming with ideas. There was an energy in the air, a buzz of excitement that she hoped would inspire her colleagues. Yet, as they began to arrive, her heart raced unpredictably, tempting her to retreat behind self-doubt. She had to remind herself that they were there to collaborate, not to critique her character. Once everyone settled, Sarah unveiled her vision with a fervor that surprised even her. She spoke about the necessity of personal narratives in history and passionately framed it as an invitation for those around her to contribute. The atmosphere shifted. She could see the flicker of intrigue ignite in their expressions. Conversation sparked, ideas clashed, and suddenly the session transformed into a vibrant exchange of concepts. Yet, it wasn't all smooth sailing. A seasoned history teacher raised concerns about the feasibility of implementing such narratives alongside standard curricula. His points cut deep, allowing her insecurities to creep back in. What if she had been too ambitious? She grappled with her instincts to defend her vision versus the gnawing fear of sounding defensive. Instead, she took a deep breath and chose a path of mutual understanding. I appreciate your concerns. They reflect the realities we all face. But what if we view this initiative not as an addition, but as an enhancement? A way to engage students more deeply, which might even lead to better outcomes on standardized assessments. As the room buzzed with dialogue, an unexpected synergy began to crystallize. Other teachers chimed in, each bringing perspectives shaped by their unique classrooms, their experiences adding layers of depth to her original proposal. Sarah felt her heart soar as cooperation blossomed amidst their candid exchanges. Encouragement from her colleagues began to override the skepticism, fueling her resolve. With newfound resolve, Sarah felt her trajectory extend before her like an open road. But, somewhere in the background, uncertainty loomed. She contemplated how she would ensure this momentum translated into influence, especially among the decision-makers who still harbored doubts. The next phase beckoned as she realized her work was just beginning. She would need to channel this collaborative energy into strategic outreach, potentially captivating external stakeholders. Yet, a gnawing question lingered. Could she effectively weave this diverse coalition into a unified force capable of influencing broader educational policies? The thought sent an electric jolt through her, igniting a sense of urgency. It was time to leap forward, but she couldn't shake the feeling that each step taken also brought her closer to risking everything. The stakes were high, and Sarah was resolute. This was not just about changing history lessons, it was about changing lives. But could she construct a bridge from idea to impact while navigating the complexities of institutional inertia? As she looked around the room, she sensed the path ahead would be fraught with challenges and resistance. Yet the echo of her students' potential fortified her. With a renewed determination coursing through her veins, she heard a relentless call for action. Whatever lay ahead, it was imperative she rise to meet it. Determined to transform her vision into a tangible reality, Sarah sat at her desk, knowing the brainstorming session had been just the beginning. The enthusiasm in the room had been infectious, but now the daunting tasks of implementation and outreach loomed ahead like an insurmountable wall. She closed her eyes and pictured her fellow teachers. The gleam of inspiration in their eyes ignited a flicker of hope that fueled her resolve. With caffeine coursing through her veins, she opened her laptop and drafted an email to her colleagues. She invited them to continue the conversation, hoping to hone their collaboration into a structured plan. Yet, as she typed, an unsettling thought surfaced. What if they saw her enthusiasm as childish naivete? She hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard as doubts gnawed at the edges of her confidence. What she desired was clarity and focus, but fear quickly clouded her ambitions. She pressed send, feeling a wave of relief, but also the weight of vulnerability. Over the next few days, responses trickled in, each reply a blend of support and skepticism. While many were eager to contribute, others expressed lingering doubts about resource allocation and curriculum alignment. Sarah couldn't afford to dismiss their fears as unfounded. They represented the reality she had to navigate. After weeks of theoretical discussions, she understood the importance of tangible solutions. With a renewed sense of purpose, Sarah arranged to meet with the principal, Clara Evans. Clara was known for her pragmatic approach, qualities Sarah admired yet feared. As the day approached, she rehearsed what she needed to communicate, balancing her vision's passion with data-driven arguments. But the night before the meeting, self-doubt intruded. What if Clara dismissed her ideas as unrealistic? Slumber did not come easily, the specter of failure whispering relentlessly in her ear. The morning sun shone brightly as Sarah confronted her fears head-on, a mixture of excitement and terror thrumming beneath her skin. In the principal's office, amidst the smell of fresh coffee and the distant chatter of students, she laid out her vision systematically. She framed her proposal around the core educational benefits and how personal narratives could foster critical thinking, which led to enhanced engagement. Clara listened intently, her brows furrowed in concentration as Sarah explained potential teaching strategies. The conversation shifted to logistics, and in that moment they began to delve into potential challenges, particularly the logistics of implementing personal narratives along standardized curricula. "What about resources?" Clara interjected, her tone factual yet probing. "We have grants that could support this, but they're tied to specific outcomes." Taking a deep breath to steady herself, Sarah chose a, "What if we align the narratives with existing standards? We could pilot a unit in our department this year. Based on student feedback and performance data, we could refine the approach. Clara paused, weighing the suggestion. Sarah could practically see the gears turning in her mind. A flicker of consideration ignited hope in Sarah's chest. Her heart raced, propelled by the possibility of transformation closer within reach. However, as the meeting progressed, Sarah felt the familiar pang of anxiety creeping in. What if this was all just a dream? She clenched her fists beneath the table, a physical reminder of the seriousness of her mission. At that moment, focusing on her students' potential became her mantra. The fire in their eagerness banished the shadows of doubt. As they wrapped up, Clara agreed to explore the proposal further, suggesting a gathering with more faculty members to discuss logistics. The glimmer of approval sparked something new within Sarah, an unexpected wave of adrenaline. Energized, Sarah knew the next step required a new level of strategic planning, one that would secure buy-in from a larger audience and tackle the practical roadblocks highlighted in the meeting. Engaging the administration would require not only her vision, but also her analytical skills to address each concern head-on. She would need to translate her ideas into actionable items that considered the constraints of existing systems. As the day progressed and she returned to her office, Sarah recognized a critical crossroad. The support garnered could lead to significant change in educational policy, but it would demand fortitude, creativity, and the ability to navigate institutional intricacies. Regaining her focus, she began drafting her next steps, outlining who needed to be involved in further discussions. The urgency surged through her. She needed to galvanize her colleagues, turning collaboration into a finely tuned machine of change. And just as the thought settled, a text buzzed on her phone, a message from Clara scheduling the meeting. Hopeful excitement mingled with anxiety, for Sarah's moment of reckoning was fast approaching. What unforeseen challenges lay in waiting, and would she have the resolve to ready her allies to face them? The path forward was fraught with uncertainty, but one thing was crystal clear. Sarah was no longer just a dreamer. She was about to become a determined catalyst for change. The sunlight filtered gently through the window, illuminating Sarah's cluttered desk where stacks of notes lay scattered like puzzle pieces waiting to be assembled. She scrutinized her hastily written thoughts, contemplating how to mold them into a coherent strategy. Each plan needed rigorous details that would convert the enthusiasm of her meetings into concrete steps that motivated her colleagues to action. As she sat in contemplation, Sarah couldn't shake the nervous flutter in her stomach. Clara's text had left her invigorated yet apprehensive about the upcoming meeting. This was a chance to rally the faculty, to transform abstract discussions into concrete commitments. What if she faltered? What if her well-crafted proposal fell flat before the assembled voices of doubt? Each faculty member represented a potential hurdle. They carried distinct opinions and were protective of their teaching methodologies. The realization that each of these educators possessed unique insights should have given her comfort, but instead it intensified her anxiety. Could she facilitate a discussion that would honor their perspectives while still staying true to her vision? With a determined exhale, she picked up her phone and opened a group chat with her colleagues. As she began typing, she realized that direct communication might just be the key to solidifying her support. She leaned into her role as a facilitator, her words carefully chosen to highlight not only the benefits of her vision, but also the value of each teacher's contribution. Let's share ideas about how personal narratives could enhance our curriculum and align with our district standards. I believe we can create a pilot program that benefits our students, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Once sent, the weight of anticipation pressed down on her. She leaned back in her chair, tapping her fingers on the surface, willing the notifications to ring in with newfound interest. During a faculty meeting the following week, her heart raced as she entered the room. This was no longer just a conversation with Clara. This was a gathering of minds, each reluctant to let go of the comfort that tradition provided. She could sense the tension in the air, excitement tinged with skepticism. As the meeting commenced, Sarah took the lead. With a visual aid prepared, she laid out her proposal through slides that illustrated student engagement statistics and examples of narrative integration from other schools. Each laugh and nod from her audience reassured her of the clarity in her presentation. However, the moment of glory was tainted by the critical feedback that followed. Several teachers voiced concerns about assessment metrics and potential pushback from parents. For each point raised, Sarah's mind raced, recalling how Clara had emphasized the importance of addressing these challenges head-on. She steadied her breathing, reminding herself that constructive resistance was an opportunity for refinement, not an outright dismissal of her ideas. "Those are valid concerns," she responded, her voice steady and confident. "But every innovative approach faces scrutiny. We must frame this as an opportunity to adjust our teaching in ways that truly resonate with our students' experiences." Encouraged by her own words, she pressed on, inviting suggestions and opinions to integrate better accountability into her vision. The conversation shifted from critique to collaboration as colleagues began to brainstorm implementation ideas together. The initial tension waned, replaced instead with a burgeoning camaraderie and shared purpose. Just as she felt the energy in the room heighten, a familiar face among her colleagues, Mark, raised a hand, shooting her a doubtful glance. "What evidence do we have that this is going to work? What if it fails?" Confronting this doubt head-on, Sarah met his eyes. "What if it succeeds?" she countered. "What if we succeed at creating an enriched, interactive way of learning that captures our students' interests? If we don't try, how will we ever know?" In that moment, Sarah realized she had crossed a threshold. She wasn't simply advocating for a new method. She was fighting for a vision that could transform not only educational practices, but also how they viewed their roles as educators. With the meeting concluding on a cautiously optimistic note, Sarah felt an intoxicating mix of relief and determination. Yet she understood that this was only the beginning. They had opened the door to exploration, but how far could they really go? As Sarah left the room, her phone buzzed furiously. Clara's text had arrived, illuminating the next phase of her journey. Let's talk about the budget and the future. The moment of truth was upon her, but this was just the prelude to a deeper challenge. How would she navigate the inevitable scrutiny of those who held the purse strings? Would she confidently stride through the next meeting, or would fear drown her ambitions anew? The air around Sarah felt charged as she read Clara's text again, her mind racing with what lay ahead. The mention of the budget was not merely an administrative detail. It was a make-or-break moment for her initiative. What if the funding didn't get approved? Her pulse quickened. The success of her proposal lay in the shadows, vulnerable to the whims of fiscal priorities. In the days that followed, Sarah threw herself into research. She mapped out the potential costs of her program, weighed against anticipated outcomes. She needed numbers to not only justify her vision, but also reassure those who might question her. If she could provide compelling evidence of the program's value, perhaps she could sway not just her colleagues, but the higher-ups who held the financial reins. Staring into the glow of her laptop, she began to draft a budget proposal. It required a delicate balance. How could she ask for enough resources to make her initiative meaningful without appearing greedy or naive? She meticulously listed expenses, training sessions for faculty, materials for students, and resources she had acquired from successful case studies at other districts. Each entry aligned with a vision, and for the first time, she felt like these numbers represented her fight, captured in ink. Later that week, a meeting had been organized with Clara and the budget committee. As she arrived, doubt crept back into her mind. She had shared her vision, but here, seated across from the committee, her dreams felt as fragile as glass. What if her passion fell flat when faced with scrutiny? "Sarah," Clara encouraged as they waited for the others to arrive, Remember how far you've come. You are not just presenting an idea, but a possibility for transformation. The encouragement grounded Sarah. She took a deep breath and forced her shoulders down, allowing confidence to surface. When the committee members settled in and introductions were made, Sarah presented her proposal. She laid out the envisioned impact the pilot program could have on the students' learning experiences while backing it with data. Every statistic had a purpose. Every slide told a story. Yet, as the questions began to roll in after her presentation, that familiar flutter returned. What guarantees do we have that these methods will lead to improved outcomes? One committee member challenged. Another asked, how do you intend to collect data for assessment without overwhelming faculty? The room was a minefield, and the pressure felt suffocating. Sarah recollected Mark's doubts from the faculty meeting. Every valid concern was a chance to strengthen her commitment to her vision. Clearing her throat, she began to respond thoughtfully, addressing each point with precision and reinforcing her capability to adapt the implementation of the program based on ongoing feedback. However, just as she felt a rhythm emerge in the room, another member fixed her with a steely gaze, one that pierced through her confidence. This sounds ambitious, but ambition won't get us funding. What makes you believe we should prioritize this over established programs? That question felt like a punch to her gut. It held the weight of countless hours spent crafting her vision. The impatient tick of the clock resonated painfully in her ears as Sarah composed herself. We cannot afford to remain stagnant, she stated firmly, especially when our students' needs are evolving. Innovation is about risks, yet the greatest risk is doing nothing and missing opportunities to enhance their education. Silence hung in the air, heavy with contemplation. Would her words resonate? Did they reach beyond the paper to the heart of those seated around the table? At that moment, something within Sarah shifted. Uncertainty morphed into resolve. Her voice gained strength. She realized she wasn't just advocating for her proposal, she was standing up for every student that would benefit from it. Their futures depended on her persistence. As the meeting adjourned and comments wrapped up, Sarah felt a powerful mix of anxiety and hope coursing through her. Whatever the outcome, she had fought for her vision with depth and clarity. Whether she was successful or not remained in the balance, but for now, she understood the true meaning of her endeavor. Walking out of the meeting, Sarah was met with Clara's encouraging smile. You did amazing. No matter what happens, you've stepped into your role as a leader. But just as relief washed over her, a new notification vibrated in her pocket, a text from Mark. Can we discuss some more? I want to share an idea related to your proposal, but it's a bit unconventional. The intrigue of this unexpected twist curled in her stomach, informing her that her journey was far from over. Would this unconventional idea fortify her vision or lead her down another uncertain path? In the weeks that followed, Sarah immersed herself in uncertainty, waiting for the budget committee's decision. Each day felt like an eternity, shadowed by her relentless thoughts of what if? Did she truly have their backing? Or had the passion she displayed merely fallen on deaf ears? But amidst this tumult, she remained resilient, focused on the faces of her students. Their eagerness for understanding drove her onward. She could not let their futures rest solely on the fluctuations of budgetary decisions. Finally, the fateful meeting arrived, and as she stood before the committee once again, nerves coiled in her stomach, but determination ignited her spirit. Clara introduced Sarah, emphasizing the significant interest surrounding her proposal. The members shifted uncomfortably, but she had learned how to navigate pressure points from previous encounters. Today, we will walk you through the specifics of the pilot program based on your feedback. We want to ensure alignment with our goals as a district, she began, her voice steady. As she engaged in the discussion, the committee members appeared increasingly receptive to her ideas. Yet she remained acutely aware that approval remained tenuous at best. One committee member, a woman well respected in educational systems, leaned forward, concern etched on her face. Sarah, we have limited resources, and while this initiative seems promising, How do you plan to ensure the curriculum maintains its rigor while incorporating personal narratives? Drawing strength from a prior discussion with her peers, Sarah felt a spark ignite. What if we measure success not just through standardized testing, but through student engagement and qualitative assessments? The words flowed naturally from her lips, fueled by a genuine desire for her students to connect with their heritage. The actual transformative learning experiences we provide in this pilot may yield greater long-term benefits in how our students perceive education. This perspective garnered nods of interest from other members. As the discussion unfolded, Sarah felt the atmosphere evolve, each exchange becoming a building block toward an agreement. That moment was surreal, her idea slowly gaining traction, shaping itself into something tangible. The committee deliberated after her presentation, and as she awaited their response, she realized how far she had come as an educator, finding her voice where doubt once loomed large. Finally, the chair spoke, his tone cautious but hopeful. "We commend your initiative, Sarah. While we cannot provide full funding just yet, we can allocate a small budget for a pilot. If it proves successful, we'll consider expanding it." The room burst into applause, and she felt tears well in her eyes. This challenge wasn't just an achievement, it was a testament to their collective belief in potential transformation. With renewed vigor, Sarah dedicated herself to refining her strategy. Her collaboration with colleagues solidified as they began brainstorming practical methodologies for integrating personal narratives into their teaching. All voices mattered. Mark's unconventional idea evolved into a powerful collaborative framework, one that promised the integration of community stories alongside historical events. Each meeting pulsated with excitement, ideas flowed freely, reinforced by a shared vision of the educational experience they wanted to cultivate. As the momentum built, the elements of doubt that lingered in her mind began to recede. Instead, there was clarity and conviction. Teachers who had once hesitated to embrace change became champions, energized by each class's response to hearing their own stories in the lessons. As the pilot program launched, Sarah watched her students engage with history in unprecedented ways. They created projects that reflected their heritage, connected with their roots, and engaged in discussions that echoed the voices of their ancestors. Youthful expressions resonating with the past. The classroom transformed from mere instruction to a tapestry of lived experiences, weaving rich cultural narratives into their understanding of history. Results began to show. Student engagement metrics skyrocketed alongside improved academic performance and heightened attendance. The initiative's success sparked conversations among other faculty, and soon stories highlighting successful practices began circulating, creating a tidal wave of inspiration throughout Maplewood High. Sarah stood back, overwhelmed by the sheer power of transformation, the shift not only in her students, but within herself. She had emerged not only as an advocate for education, but as a trailblazer who valued creativity over conformity. Her journey was one of resilience, tenacity, and conviction. She had evolved from a passive educator to an empowered leader whose innovative spirit had ignited change. As teachers and students alike celebrated the initial triumphs, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of fulfillment. She was no longer weighed down by the doubts that once threatened to extinguish her passion. Instead, she radiated confidence and was met with recognition from the school administration. Her leadership and collaborative spirit were now acknowledged throughout the educational network. With pride, Sarah opened her laptop to start penning a report on the pilot's successes. Each word chronicled the remarkable journey she had undergone and spelled out actionable insights that could guide future initiatives. In sharing her story, she would be paving the way for others to find their voices, standing as proof that one individual could challenge the status quo. Her experience emerged not merely as a win for a program, but a profound personal achievement woven into the fabric of her identity as an educator. In forging pathways for her students, she had illuminated her own way forward, fueled by an unwavering commitment to education and the transformative power of storytelling. Now, as she prepared to share her newfound knowledge with other educators eager for change, Sarah placed her hands on the keyboard. This was a moment resonant with purpose. The future beckoned, and she would answer. If you've been inspired by Sarah's journey and are ready to embark on your own path of transformation, you need to subscribe now to our channel. This is the moment to show your support for emotional stories that make a difference. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, ensuring others find these inspiring tales. I want to hear from you. Comment your thoughts and theories about this emotional conclusion. And remember, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness the power of personal growth through storytelling. Your support can help inspire the next generation of changemakers.